Oh, our next guest is an actor and a brilliant director, having made such classics as, and I know he's so sick of hearing this, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, my favorite of all time, This is Spinal Tap. The list goes on and on and on.
Once a meathead, always a meathead? Well, if you ask Fox News, Rob Reiner is more of a meathead than ever, spewing out his political beliefs and pushing an ultra-liberal agenda, devouring anything and everything that is not left of center. And if you ask baby boomers, Rob Reiner will always be Meathead, with a capital M, his beloved character in the classic sitcom All in the Family. And if you ask a film connoisseur, they will say that Rob Reiner is a filmmaker who gave us some of the best flicks ever. Until he didn't. But really, Rob Reiner, now nearly 60 years in the business, is an extension of all of these things. Yes, he spends more time on Real Time with Bill Maher nowadays than he does working on genre-defining scripts, but he has secured his legacy with classics like This is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, Misery, A Few Good Men, and some more. Yeah, the guy's made so many great films that it doesn't really matter how much crap he puts out now. And there's a lot of it. And that Elijah Wood movie, North, it isn't even the worst. So how did this man, Rob Reiner, go from making a few great movies that defined and elevated our pop culture on so many different levels, to suddenly pumping out nothing but heartless, soulless, political garbage and romantic comedies that are neither romantic nor comedic? Yes, how did this jack of all genres become a master of none? Let's find out what the f*** happened to Rob Reiner.
I'm Rob Reiner, and you've just been Reinered. Come on, boys, let's make our escape. Don't you try and stop us. Oh!
But to truly understand what the f*** happened to Rob Reiner, we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when he was born on his birthday, 1947, New York City, to Ethel and Carl Reiner, one of the leading and most acclaimed names in comedy. That's right, Rob Reiner is a Nepo baby, although it is kind of funny to think of someone nearly in their 80s as one. But yeah, Rob is a Nepo baby, but he couldn't help it, y'all. He was just born that way. With a key connection in the industry, Rob Reiner got small parts in major shows like That Girl, Batman, The Partridge Family, and more.
I'm Harry Murphy. Where's the chick that's crazy about?
He made his big screen appearance in 1967's Enter Laughing, which was directed by his old man, Carl Reiner. One of his most key gigs in that decade, the 60s, was a writer for the comedy duo The Smothers Brothers Variety Show. But it was 1971's groundbreaking sitcom, All in the Family, that made Rob Reiner a household name, playing Michael, aka Meathead, the man whose head was made of meat. He played the liberal-minded and often empty-minded son-in-law to everybody's favorite, racist? Archie Bunker. Meathead served as the left-wing opposition to anything and everything Archie would hilariously spit out, foreshadowing his real-life persona when Meathead became a talking head on every political program from MSNBC to Fox News, and more. For his role as Meathead, Reiner would win 2 Emmys. He would dabble in television a bit more by co-creating the short-lived sitcom The Super. But it would be the big screen that would truly cement his name in American entertainment.
These go to 11.
In 1984, Rob Reiner created This is Spinal Tap with the help of a lot of really brilliant comedians. Mr. Rob Reiner would direct this mockumentary, and he would play the director in the mockumentary. A director within a director. And although this is not the first comedy mockumentary, This is Spinal Tap reinvigorated the genre, and still remains the pinnacle This is Spinal Tap is absolutely brilliant. It truly captures the spirit of rock and roll, and you're not exactly sure where the jokes end and real life begins, and that makes it even funnier, more funny. And yeah, they rocked so hard that they kind of actually became a real band. So everyone was wondering, what is this hotshot director gonna do next? Surprising everybody by picking a different type of comedy, one of those romantic ones, called The Sure Thing. And yeah, at the time, this seemed kind of out of character for this mockumentary rock and roll director, but it would be the first of a lot in the familiar territory of rom-coms. That's how they say romantic comedy on the streets. Rom-com. So then everybody was like, oh, okay, Rob Reiner, he's the comedy director. I wonder what comedy he's going to direct next. But Rob would defy expectations yet again by helming the Stephen King adaptation Stand By Me in 1986. And yes, even though this movie has some funny moments, Rob Reiner would prove that he is a director who could perfectly handle coming of age and drama. But yeah, that's what Robbie Boy does best. He changes genres like it's underwear, which I hope he changes. Rob would say that he really relates to the Gordy character, the narrator, because, he's a writer, a creative type, who finds himself amid the pressures of following behind a much-admired family member. Rob could relate, but Mr. Rob Reiner would not have to worry because he was well out of Papa Carl's shadow by then, even earning his first Golden Globe nomination for director. But yeah, Stand By Me, it's absolutely brilliant. Rob Reiner handles everything so well, balances the fun with the drama, perfectly captures the excitement and the fear of childhood, of growing up, and while watching it, you actually feel like you're growing up. If you understand what I'm saying, and if you don't, you need to grow up. Then Rob Reiner would throw us all for another loop and dive head first into the fantasy genre, fantasy comedy, with The Princess Bride. And yeah, this movie is absolutely hilarious. Almost every line is quotable. It's just so charming. It's like, a fairy tale come to life with some of the best casting ever. And yeah, I don't know about you, but I kind of grew up with this movie. And at school, every time a teacher didn't know what to do, they would just pop in that Princess Bride VHS and everything would be just fine. And nobody cared or complained that we watched it over and over and over. We got excited every time. It was a beautiful thing. But have y'all ever recently watched The Princess Bride with somebody that, doesn't have nostalgia for it? Go back and watch this thing again. It's a whole different movie when you watch it with somebody who, hasn't memorized it. Basically, unfortunately, this movie has just become a series of memes now. But yeah, I don't know. I've recently come to believe that it didn't age well. And I don't mean that in like a politically incorrect kind of way, I just mean that in like a comedy way. Like, trust me, I love this movie, but I also love nostalgia. But who fucking cares? A good movie is a good movie. Is a good movie. I even went to a Princess Bride themed wedding in Vegas and it was bonkers, y'all. These Princess Bride fans, they're something else. But yeah, this movie's a classic. And then 2 years later, he would make another movie that's considered a classic, When Harry Met Sally. One of those romantic comedy rom-coms. And when it comes to that genre, this one is always at the top of the list when people are, making a list of the best of romantic comedies, that is. And yeah, it's a good one. It's smart, it's clever, it's real, it's honest, it's beautifully shot, and it's got some hilarious moments.
I'll have what she's having.
Up to this point, Mr. Rob Reiner had delivered excellent examples of 4 different genres: mockumentary, romantic comedy, coming of age, and fantasy. He had crossed over, creating movies that virtually couldn't offend anyone, that everybody enjoyed. And with The Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally, which earned him another Golden Globe nomination, he was no doubt one of the most recognizable directors on the scene. And just when we thought he had tried all of the genres he was gonna try, Mr. Reiner took on horror, bringing us another Stephen King adaptation, the mega hit Misery. This one is brutal, absolutely terrifying, and Rob Reiner was able to direct an Oscar-winning performance out of Kathy Bates. This one right here, Rob really gets to show us that he knows how to build tension and suspense. The whole movie is absolutely horrifying, yet it's so simple, so pure, so beautifully made. It's executed like a wonderful nightmare, yet it's still grounded, so real. A horror thriller masterpiece. And then just 2 years later after that, he brought us A Few Good Men, perfectly directing an incredible ensemble cast in this courtroom drama. This one actually made a lot of money and made him even more powerful. No genre was impossible for Rob Reiner. And it didn't hurt him that he continued stepping in front of the camera throughout his career as well, with some small but very memorable roles in movies like Throw Mama from the Train, Sleepless in Seattle, Primary Colors, and he was surprisingly a scene stealer in The Wolf of Wall Street. Then, in 1995, he brought us The American President, which is ranked as one of the 100 greatest romances by the American Film Institute. The American President, as unremarkable as it is now, has a lot of importance to it. For one, it was the rebound that Rob Reiner needed after directing 1994's North. An absolute horrendous flop that showed, despite how diverse his filmography could be, maybe Rob Reiner could not handle the family movie night comedy. And Roger Ebert included this movie as one that he hated.
Give him the Emperor cut!
The American President also gave him another Golden Globe nomination for Best Director, making him one of the most nominated without a win. So he's like the best loser ever. But the American President also marked the point where he truly began to show his politics, something that he has become known for since, for better or worse. Oh my god, a Hollywood celebrity that supports left-wing causes? I am shocked. There too would be other political films like 2016's LBJ biopic, where Woody Harrelson plays Lyndon Baines Johnson. It was a nice try, but nah. Kinda like Johnson's presidency, am I right? And another political film came in 2017 with Shock and Awe. It was overtly left-leaning, and it kinda makes you feel like Rob Reiner desperately wants to be Michael Moore. But yeah, despite your politics, his approach to getting his opinion out there became so, well, loud-mouthed and annoying that he literally became a South Park character.
My goo! My precious goo!
So yeah, Rob Reiner's leftist positions have proven to be one of his most domineering personality traits, often at this point appearing on panels to spread his opinion all around the mainstream media. Like, consider 2014's God and Country, a documentary he produced that warns of the, quote, weaponization of racism through the world of Christian nationalism and the Trump era. So yeah, it's one of those documentaries. And taking this stance has kind of made him a champion of the far left, which has made him all the more welcome in Hollywood, but pinned him as public enemy to, everyone else. Like good old Fox News, who said that Rob Reiner's film God and Country deserves an Oscar for Best Performance for Religiophobia. And these foxy Fox News people latched on to Reiner's former Meathead nickname, calling this Meathead any chance they got a chance to say Meathead to this Meathead. But surprise, surprise, this left-leaning documentary that criticizes an entire religion was somehow a box office bomb.
You hear this all the time, and on your show and many other shows, that the fight right now is between whether or not we preserve our democracy or we slip into a theocratic autocracy. That's what this movement wants.
But to those who have truly paid attention to the career path that Rob Reiner has taken over the decades, you will know that his politics are absolutely not the only reason he has, fallen a wee bit from his glory days. The real top reasons for the decline of Rob Reiner are not making money and making not good movies. Rob Reiner has only had one movie since 1995 that has taken in more than $50 million domestically, and that one movie was 2007's The Bucket List, which only really had the benefit of allowing him to reunite with Jack Nicholson 15 years after A Few Good Men, and it was also nice to see him work with Morgan Freeman. But yeah, that was kind of the whole marketing campaign for this movie, The Bucket List. It was like, see these two elderly good actors in the same frame. It's harmless, ineffective, and once again inoffensive. Much like every one of his post A Few Good Men movies. Even when it seemed like he wanted another challenge, like the okay but less than stellar courtroom drama Ghosts of Mississippi, he never really made another movie that would be labeled a classic. Which is hard and tough, especially when every movie you had made since was basically a classic. Ghosts of Mississippi is pretty good, though. But my favorite Rob Reiner was in the early 90s when he was doing like a transition period, going darker, making us feel some misery, making us wanting the truth, even if we couldn't handle it. Yeah, A Few Good Men is really good, y'all. And by that point, it was his biggest box office hit, and stands as his only film to cross 100 million domestically. Now he's lucky to cross 15 million, and only 3 movies in 3 decades have done so, like The Bucket List, and 1999's lame romance The Story of Us. It only made 27 million, and considering this was 1999 Bruce Willis, it should have made a hell of a lot more. And then there was 2003's even lamer romance movie Alex and Emma, which made 14 million. And the mild success of these films were not due to Rob Reiner, it was because of its stars. It's just been a thin string of unremarkable and forgettable movies that pad out the tail end of his filmography. There was that 2010 movie Flipped that tried the coming-of-age romance blend of genres, but it never even cracked the top 20 at the box office, making just 1.75 million. In 2012's The Magic of Belle Isle, falsely advertised as magic, because there's absolutely no magic in this movie, and this movie barely made $100,000, even though it starred Morgan Freeman. 2014 brought us And So It Goes, with Michael Douglas and Diane Keaton, which had a very limited demographic, because nobody wants to watch that. 2015 brought us something called Being Charlie that, I totally forgot even existed. And do y'all remember 2005's Rumor Has It, which is a weird, somewhat sequel to The Graduate, which is kind of a stupid plot, but they do nothing with this stupid plot.
Bo, you should not have come down here.
Why not? He's been everywhere else.
And just like how Rob Reiner wanted to be Michael Moore, it seems like he also wants to be Oliver Stone. Because lately, Mr. Reiner has been dedicating lots of his time to a podcast, because everybody's got a f***ing podcast now, a podcast about the JFK assassination conspiracy theory, even though it's not really a conspiracy theory anymore, like a lot of things. But yeah, you gotta respect Mr. Reiner. He's searching for the truth, and he's even naming 4 potential shooters.
It's impossible. You cannot shoot from this angle, hit somebody in the head, it would come out there, it wouldn't come out back there. And so all the forensic experts I talked to said it has to be a different angle.
Rob Reiner has an extensive filmography, but he petered out, focusing less on doing awesome things like making us laugh at the music industry, satirizing fairy tales, exploring relationships between men and women, and marriage, trying to understand the fragility of youth, exposing the corruption of our most respected systems, and keeping your feet away from Kathy Bates. Now it just feels like he's pushing his political agenda. And he can totally do that if he wants to, but you know, I just miss the old Rob, who was the young Rob. But maybe, just maybe, the old Rob misses the young old Rob as well. Because recently it was announced that they are making a sequel to This Is Spinal Tap. Will it be called That Was Spinal Tap? And yeah, this sounds like an absolutely great idea, but it probably isn't. I'm sure there's a ton of material about aging rock stars that the guys can play around with, but this type of sequel, they tend to let us all down and kind of ruin the legacy. Sometimes it's best to leave the 80s in the 80s, especially when you're like in your 80s. But I hope I'm wrong, I really do. I hope these elderly gentlemen rock my socks off and make me laugh out loud.
But hey, enough of my yakking. What do you say? Let's boogie.
This meathead of a man became one of the most reliable and resourceful filmmakers of the 80s and 90s. Right off the bat, the dude was just like pumping out classic after classic after classic after classic. Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men. That is one of the hottest streak of hits for a filmmaker ever. And each one was more unique and different than the next. Rob Reiner doesn't have a style. He creates and adapts a new style depending on the film. And his movies, they also crossed generations as prime examples of each of their genres. Like when you walked into a video rental store when those were still, in existence, every category, in every aisle you would walk down would have a Rob Reiner film. And each one would probably be the best one on their particular shelf. This director has so much range, his filmography is so diverse, that it's hard to even understand. It's hard to pinpoint him as an artist. He's more than just an artist. And he's more than just a meathead. So nobody should give a f*** about what the f*** happened to Rob Reiner, because he's doing just fine.